Fantastic. Do this. Alrighty, awesome. So like I said, thanks for everyone that made the effort to come on a Monday night. You're probably all feeling a little bit tired after work. So this is a good segue into how we can have more epic energy. All right. So a lot of you maybe already know me. I'm Sarah Emily Herbalist. I've been in my clinic for over 5 years as a herbalist, iridologist. Specifically specialise in women's health, but definitely have a very keen interest in all things natural and all things herbal medicine. I have my own beautiful herbal tea range as well. Some of you are familiar with that and have had nice results from those as well. At the end, if you've got any questions, put them in the chat and I can get to answering them if I get time at the end, but I do have a lot of information to go through. So if I get time, I'll answer them. If not, I might make note and answer some of them in Instagram. So let's get started. So what is going to actually be inside this Epic Energy Masterclass and why do we need it? So definitely something I see with all of my clients, or a lot of my clients, particularly this time of the year, but also, you know, COVID life has sort of been lingering around maybe a little bit too long, and people are, you know, they're not used to sort of having to deal with that on an ongoing basis. So what we're going to talk about today is actually the sort of 4 key factors in getting epic energy, which you can all start implementing now to launch yourself into a energy for the new year. So we're going to talk about how to get a rejuvenating night's sleep and why sleep is so important. We're going to talk about why and how to manage stress levels and the impact stress has on the body, avoiding those invisible environmental elements. Now that's actually quite an interesting one, maybe something that you guys haven't thought about as to be affecting your body and your energy levels. And then we're also going to talk about our diet and how to make wholesome food choices to actually stabilize our energy throughout the day. And of course, this means we can leap into 2022 with the best energy and vitality. So let's get started. What are the signs of burnout? Now, of course, this can be different for everyone. Some of you will have all of these things. Maybe some of you will have none. Like I said, it is very individualized, but you can definitely see depletion from a physical and a mental aspect, low motivation, antisocial behavior or sort of withdrawal from, you know, normal social events, depression, anxiety, feeling overwhelmed. I think that's a big one I'm hearing from my clients, that they just feel overwhelmed with just life and easily irritated. And that's definitely a sign of stress, but also a sign of fatigue and being mentally and physically and emotionally drained. Of course, brain fog's a big part, difficulty concentrating, a lack of creativity, and then relying on the stimulants for actually giving you that sense of energy. We will talk about those stimulants a little bit later and how they do give our body a false sense of energy, but how they can actually be quite detrimental to our body ongoing. So what are some energy takers? So of course, inconsistent sleep patterns, unwholesome and undernourishing food choices, stress and negativity, screens and EMF exposure. So you've got your first insight into that invisible environmental aspect that could be implementing our energy, and that is EMF exposure. I'm going to talk about that a lot coming up. It's definitely one of my favorite subjects and something that most definitely would be impacting our energy. Dehydration, of course, is a big one, and then not enough time in nature. The amazing power of green has got a lot of research into actually helping to de-stress, but also energize our bodies as well. And we get that in ample amounts from nature, of course. All right, so let's talk about sleep. So basically, we couldn't talk about energy and getting more energy without at least mentioning sleep. Of course, it's like the cornerstone of good health and most definitely good energy. It has a definitive effect on energy and vitality. It's the time our body rests, repairs, and rejuvenates. So if we're not getting a good quality, uninterrupted sleep, Our body doesn't have the ability to repair itself and to renew. And even from an emotional point of view, sort of all of those emotions don't have time to actually detox from our body, and they're just constantly going through our nervous system ongoing. So most definitely sleep is, a fundamental when it comes to good energy. Like I mentioned there, the body repairs the cells, restores energy, releases molecules like hormones and protein. So super important, sleep. Insomnia can actually affects us from a mitochondrial level. So when I say mitochondrial, I'm talking about from a cellular level. So insomnia is definitely affecting that. And it sort of decreases our ability to mop up oxidative stress. And of course, I'll talk about oxidative stress a little bit more with the EMFs, but oxidative stress is, a huge thing that our body is then going to have to spend a lot of energy clearing up. All right, so you can see there that insomnia has a direct link on cellular energy and our cellular ability to heal and feel energized. And also another really important thing to mention is that any disruption in our circadian rhythm or, our sleep cycle has a direct alteration with our gut microbiome as well. So we must get good quality sleep. Okay, so let's go to this. So what actually happens to our body when we sleep? It's not just a passive thing that we do. We don't just lay our heads down and then bam, that's it. We wake up 8 hours later and nothing's happened. The body, as I mentioned before, is constantly working, repairing and rejuvenating. So our brain is busy clearing out toxins and making new connections and processing memories. Our muscles release growth hormones and which repairs our muscles. Our lungs, so our breathing slows down at night. So sleep deprivation actually leaves us more vulnerable to respiratory infections. Our heart rate and our blood pressure both slow down, which actually gives our heart a break as well. And then our stomach. So at night, the hormones melatonin and prolactin are produced, which is going to improve our gut bacteria and improve our healthy digestion. So like I said, it's very much not just a passive thing. It's a very important aspect to health, but most definitely good energy. Sleep disturbances, a lot of research and a lot of studies have shown that sleep disturbances can directly affect our eating behavior and timing, our immune function, our inflammation status, and our disposition to have fat in the abdomen area as well. So super important, sleep. So what factors may be affecting your sleep? Increased body temperature. So this is really actually important, particularly as we're coming into summertime. Melatonin, which is the main sleep hormone, is directly impacted or directly affected by higher body temperatures, and that is definitely associated with poor sleep quality. Poor sleep hygiene as well is one of the worst sort of contributing factor to bad sleep or poor and unrejuvenating sleep. Blue light exposure directly impacts our melatonin production. And of course, that blue light is emitted from our screens, and we're on our screens all day, every day, unfortunately. Particularly now with COVID, a lot of us are doing things online with Zoom or whatever place. So we're constantly getting that blue light exposure, which has a direct impact on our melatonin production. All right. Also, when we have eaten our last meal and what we ate, will also affect our sleep. Whether we have social jet lag. So this idea that maybe we have different sleep patterns on the work days and then on the weekends. And this is going to actually disrupt that circadian rhythm and sort of really affect our sleep. And this is probably one of the easiest things that we can do is have a regular routine when it comes to sleep. The time we go to bed, the time we wake up. It's pretty easy to do. Of course, not all the time with the weekends, but as much as you can, that's a really awesome way to get good quality sleep. And of course, stress. Stress, we're going to talk about shortly, has a direct impact on everything, but of course on our sleep quality as well. So our brain's pretty awesome because it has this thing called a suprachiasmatic nucleus. So CSN, and basically it is a part of the brain or the body that is picking up these signals all day, every day. Things like hormone secretion, body temperature, food intake, all of those things are getting have a direct impact on our brain, and then how our brain's going to respond to those sleep hormones, like I mentioned, melatonin. So super awesome, but also super sensitive as well when it comes to sleep. So now we know what affects our sleep. How can we get good sleep? So these are sort of just some pretty basic sleep hygiene tips. As I mentioned before, you want to keep a sleep-wake routine as much as possible on weekends. Now, this is a really important one. You want to use those red lights in the evening. So you can probably all see I have a beautiful salt lamp. At night, as much as you can, use your salt lamps, or use sort of like a, not an EMF, or what do you call it, not an EMF, not the blue LED light lamps, but more of like your basic sort of low light red, because you think about our, natural sun. So essentially it doesn't go from like being bright all day and then bam, night. That sun, as it goes down, it has those red and orange hues. And those red and orange hues basically are stimulating the production of melatonin, and it's telling our body, all right, we're getting into sleep time, the sun's setting, let's stop the serotonin and let's get the melatonin happening. So that red light exposure is super important for actually getting a good quality sleep. And you'll pretty much never see me at night, or most of the day anywhere, whenever I use screens without my glasses, because these guys block the blue light being emitted from the screens, and they have been revolutionary for my sleep. You can take it one step further and get red light glasses, and there are people, some of my clients, that I say, if they're having significant sleep issues despite all of the sleep hygiene, I say definitely get those red light glasses, because they're going to just take it to the next level when it comes to sleep. Another really important thing is to get daylight exposure within the first 30 to 60 minutes of rising. This is also really important because, as I mentioned before, serotonin and melatonin, they have like a little interrelated relationship with each other. So when one is high, the other drops, and vice versa. So of course we want good serotonin in the morning, and how we get that is sunlight and daylight, and that's when we want our melatonin to stop. So open the blinds up, go and have your lemon water or your cup of tea outside in the sun as much as possible. And if you can't actually get physically outside, definitely open your your blinds so you can get that natural light within the first 30 to 60 minutes, ideally. We definitely want to try and avoid electronic devices at least 2 hours from bed. That's probably a huge stretch for most people. So, an hour would be still awesome if you could definitely try to do that. But if not, definitely you want your blue light glasses, or, the blue light blocking glasses. Of course, we want to manage our stress levels. I'm talking about this a little bit further on, but deep breathing, meditation at night, all of those things to calm the nervous system. One of the major things my clients say that interrupts their sleep is stress. So they have a busy mind, they're feeling anxious. Of course, that's going to impact their ability to actually have a rejuvenating sleep. So we want to address those stress levels, of course. Keeping the bedroom dark, cool, and free from electronic devices. I mentioned before that heat, body heat, or just physical heat has a direct impact on melatonin. So we want to make sure that the bedroom's actually an ideal temperature, and that is usually between 17 to 22 degrees. The actual the actual bedroom temperature should be around that. And then under the covers, no hotter than 29. Anything outside of that might actually sort of affect our melatonin production. So 17 to 22 in the bedroom, and then 29 under the covers as well. Exercise is awesome, but you want to try and do it early in the day. Like I said, if you've got any sleep issues, most definitely want to avoid it later in the afternoon, because of course, as awesome as exercise is, it does sort of increase our adrenaline levels, and that can impact our sleep as well. We also want to avoid eating a large meal after 8 p.m. ideally. Eating late at night is actually associated with inflammation and a disruption in circadian rhythms. So definitely try not to eat too late. That's definitely a very important point as well. Another really important thing to mention when it comes to sleep is that much like all of the systems in our body, it's a cycle. So any sleep habits that you're going to implement, you want to be doing for at least 12 weeks, because this is really going to see your sleep cycle, like the actual cycle, get regulated. So sleep is no different to any of the other cycles that our body loves and works with. So let's talk about stress, my second favourite subject. How our body responds to stress can significantly impact, or does significantly impact, our energy. So we all know, or maybe we don't, but most of us have heard of the fight and flight response, and that is basically our body's natural response to stress. There's nothing wrong with that. That's fantastic. It's actually important for survival. It's also really important for getting things done, reaching the deadlines. You see that this is where our heart rate beats faster. We have small, shallow breaths, breathing from the upper part of our chest. All of our blood and energy goes to our peripherals, so to our arms and legs, and away from our internal organs like our digestive system. So our muscles and our body is ready for action, but it's not ready for sleep, and it's not ready for calming, but it's definitely ready for action. So like I said, initially when someone's in that hyper sort of fight and flight response, they'll probably get a decent amount of energy because their body is in that fight and flight, that initial reaction. The issue lies when this stress response doesn't stop firing. All right, so when the stress levels have been heightened for a long time, and maybe that perceived or that real threat is no longer a reality, but the body for some reason is still perceiving it as reality, and you're still getting the influx of those stress hormones without actually the stress. And of course, what this does is it creates adrenal dysregulation, and will make our bodies, this is where the issue lies when it comes to stress. That acute phase of stress, fantastic and awesome. It's the long-term effects of stress that is the real issue. And literally, stress affects every system in our body. There's not one system that escapes the effects of stress. So it tells you how important it is that we manage our stress levels. So let's talk about how stress affects energy specifically. All right, so we have this awesome thing called the endocannabinoid system, a long word, but essentially what it does is it's involved in our energy levels, it's involved in our alertness, our stress levels, our fear, pain, anxiety. It's a super awesome system, but when stress has been prolonged and frequent, it actually loses its ability to sort of regulate the response to stress on the body. All right. Also, the thyroid gets affected when we have long-term stress. There's thyroid receptors in our adrenals, and there's adrenal receptors in our thyroid. So without a doubt, our thyroid, it has a definitive and a specific link when it comes to energy production. So yes, unfortunately, long-term stress will affect our thyroid, and this, of course, is going to affect our energy. Long-term stress suppresses our immune system, and unfortunately many viruses specifically attack our mitochondria. So I mentioned that earlier, and that's like our cells. So these viruses attack our cells, and because our immune system has been suppressed by so much stress, this is going to directly impact our energy and our body's ability to fight the virus, but also now having that virus is something that our body's constantly fighting, is going to take away energy for, every other day events. So that's another really important one. Poor dietary choices is also affected by stress. We crave glucose because it's like our fast and easy source of energy when we're in that high stress situation. But of course, that can mean that, we choose the poorer choices when it comes to food, and that's most definitely going to impact our energy as well. I'm going to talk about that a little bit further on. Stress also affects our brain and our neurotransmitters. This is really important. Chronic stress reduces our levels of serotonin and dopamine, which are really important for mood support as well. And long-term stress affects our inflammation, our brain's inflammation. And so we actually can't take in any more information. And of course, stress affects our sleep as well, as we mentioned previously. So how can you manage your stress levels? We've talked about how bad it is, the long-term effects. How can we actually manage them and have more energy? So we want to practice being grateful. And this might sound a little bit, random, but actually our nervous system can't be doing joy and stress at the same time. It's almost impossible. So it chooses joy over stress. And so if we have a positive mindset and practice being grateful, it's one of the best ways we can manage our stress levels. Of course, regular exercise, ideally outside in nature, is fantastic, but if not, exercise in general, because we get almost immediate benefits from exercise. Those neurotransmitters that stress depletes actually gets regenerated when we exercise. So fantastic thing for energy levels and for stress. Of course, improving our sleep hygiene and getting restorative sleep is also really important. Deep diaphragmatic breathing, all right? Now, this is a really important thing to mention. I'm most definitely doing it now in case you can't hear. But basically, when we get stressed, normally we're breathing from our chest, so the upper part of our lungs. And that's actually reinforcing those stress hormones. So when we're breathing from that part, it's triggering the brain to say, all right, send me more adrenaline, send me more cortisol. But when we take a big breath and we breathe from our actual stomach or our diaphragm, our deep part, this is actually switching the brain, switching the nervous system, and we're actually going to start calming the body and calming that fight and flight. So deep diaphragmatic breathing is most definitely things I recommend to my clients to do. Be very conscious of doing it. Put reminders on your phone if you need to, whatever you need to do, but get breathing from your stomach. It's one of the most powerful things that we can do for stress response, stress support. We want to elevate and maybe adjust our work-life balance. We're not put on the earth just to work non-stop. We are wanting to be able to have some joy and some, nice times as well, of course. So we want to evaluate what it is that may be in our life that's putting undue stress on us, and try and fix it and try and adjust it wherever we can. Of course, that's not always possible, but definitely understanding your triggers to stress is probably one of the best ways that you can then deal with it and address it. Okay, and then of course we want to avoid excessive consumption of stimulants. So when we feel stressed, we often want more alcohol or more coffee or more sugar. But unfortunately, these things, they're stimulants and they have a direct impact on our adrenal glands. And so they're only going to make, sure, we will get that initial buzz, but it's going to zap those adrenal glands even more and just constantly put our body in that fight and flight response. Okay, and then of course, eating a healthy, balanced diet and adequate hydration. And I do talk about that in the next couple of slides as well. Okay, so we've talked about sleep and we've talked about stress. Now let's talk about electromagnetic fields. So something totally random. Probably a lot of you didn't think that this is what we would be talking about tonight as something that is impacting our energy levels, but it most certainly is. So these EMFs are pretty much everywhere. They're invisible. We can't taste them or smell them or touch them, but they're around us constantly and they're affecting us from a cellular level. So like I mentioned before with the mitochondria, this is basically the most, that's the cells in our body. And it's not just how we feel a bit maybe like our adrenal glands, but from an actual cell level, these EMF exposures are actually affecting us. All right. And of course, they're pretty awesome. I'm not going to lie, it helps Wi-Fi, smart watches, you can talk on Bluetooth when you're in the car, you can listen to, Spotify. we need them, and our life actually revolves largely around these electromagnetic fields. But we want to do what we can to still, stop their, overconsumption, and how that overconsumption might be affecting us from a cellular level. So one thing I want you guys to do is when you sort of, after this, actually sit there and think about how much exposure you would be getting to electromagnetic fields. So think about your house. Most of it's decked out with, the latest gadgets. Maybe you've got a microwave in the house. Maybe you've got Wi-Fi running all day and all night. At work, do you work with a computer or TV or a smartphone or a laptop or something? That's another exposure. As I mentioned before, when we're driving in our car, we're going to have Bluetooth. We're going to listen to car alarms, all of that, all right? And then even in public places, you think there's always free Wi-Fi everywhere. And we love it, but just think about how much exposure your body might be actually having to these electromagnetic fields. Okay, so then let's actually talk about why we are talking about them when it comes to energy. So there's been thousands of studies on the effects that electromagnetic fields have on humans and animals. And there's a lot of research that I can definitely send to anyone who wants more information around this. But for every study that you find, negatives for, you're also going to find that there's studies that disprove that theory. But whatever the case, it becomes confusing and overwhelming for a lot of people. But the research, particularly when it comes to energy and the things I've mentioned on the screen, are quite definitive with their research. So these electromagnetic fields can affect our sleep. Memory disorders are linked to it. A lot of people, there's a direct link with the phone in the ear and how that causes cancers as well. Lack of concentration and learning issues, hormone disruption, DNA changes and oxidative stress, and heating body tissue. So, if you put your phone on you and it's, you've been talking on it for a while and you put it actually on your body, it's quite hot. It's quite hot because it's, so you think about how if that's physically on you all day, if you've got Bluetooth ears in or whatever, how that's actually going to be impacting you from a cellular level, like I mentioned earlier. So yes, quite scary, but how can we minimize our exposure to EMFs? Because they are everywhere, we can't avoid them, we need them, they're awesome to some degree, but we can definitely minimize our exposure to them. So don't hold your phone to your head. Text or call someone when you need to speak to them. Use a loudspeaker where possible. Don't carry your phone on your physical body. Try and keep it at a distance. This is probably one of the easiest things that people can do. Turn your Wi-Fi router off at night. So if you're not using it at night when you're sleeping, turn it off. It's pretty easily done. Use the airplane function on your devices whenever possible. This literally cuts off the signal between the device and the Wi-Fi. So that's a really important one. Definitely remove all EMF emitting devices from the bedroom, so your phone, laptop, all of those things, smartwatches, blah, blah, blah. And definitely don't put them near your head. Often you think when we sleep, we have our bedside table there and that's where our phone lies. Put it on the ground if you have to have it near you, but definitely not at head level as you're sleeping. And then look about where you are mostly in the house and try and remove, those sources from the sources of exposure from that area and maybe move it to the other side of the house. That's a big one as well. And there are a lot of things that you can do, there's protective devices, there's clothing, there's devices, there's this awesome stone I'm wearing. I'm not sure if anyone's noticed, but this is called a shunculite. And it's a stone from Russia and it helps to actually emit or clear the EMF exposure as well. So of course I'm on the computer all day, every day. That's pretty much what I do. I love this guy because like I said, it's quite a specific protection. So I can definitely send you some links for the brands that I use as well for EMF, protection as well. All right, now let's talk about the last subject tonight when it comes to epic energy, and that is dietary choices, of course. Why? Because we are literally what we eat. Whenever I have any clients, this is probably one of the first things we address is their diet, because food, our diet or our food is literally information for ourselves. It provides our bodies with energy and nutrients, vitamins and minerals that help our body repair, rejuvenate, regulate body functions. So you think about it, every time you eat, you are voting for your health. You are voting for, are you going to give your body more energy, or is this going to give my body less energy? If you think about food like that as energy for the cells, then you're probably going to be on the right path to creating better health or sort of better dietary choices. So what are my top tips for eating healthy? All right, number one is always eat breakfast, okay? This is probably, like I said, one of my favorite things to tell people, because unfortunately it's probably the easiest and yet the hardest thing for people to do. Maybe they're rushing out for work, or maybe they don't feel hungry in the mornings. Maybe they've never been a breakfast person, or maybe, you know, they are fasting for extended periods of time. But without a doubt, breakfast is essential for energy production. It sets the scene for the day and it literally fuels our cells. We want to aim to have breakfast within an hour after rising. Anything later, you're going to start those body blood sugar issues dropping, blood sugar regulation issues. I'll get my words right soon. And then, of course, when we have our blood sugar spiking, we're also going to get adrenaline and cortisol coming into the picture, because our body thinks that we're in survival mode. So if we're not giving it energy from food, it's going to be like, oh, well, how can I function? So it sends out these stress hormones. And then this is going to, as we mentioned, as we saw before, be putting that load of stress on the body, and it's going to affect our sleep and our energy. So short answer, definitely eat breakfast. That's number one tip. And you always want your breakfast to include a protein and a fat as well. All right, not high carb, because that's going to, you know, you're going to have energy crashes after that, but definitely a protein and a good quality fat as well. Okay, so eat protein with every meal. Protein provides our body with amino acids, which is going to help to build those neurotransmitters as well. So we mentioned before the importance of neurotransmitters. Well, protein's our only way of, you know, getting the amino acids to build that. I normally recommend people try and have like a palm-sized amount of protein with every meal. And protein can come from many sources. Yes, meat is very easy protein source, but you can definitely be plant-based and have good protein levels as well. Yeah, but you just want to make sure you're getting, like I said, at least a palm with every meal. Okay, we want to have regular meal times, ideally every 3 to 4 hours, because this is going to stabilize our blood sugar levels. It's not going to allow those spikes in cortisol, which zap our energy later in the day. So basically, we want to just keep our body, you know, when I say frequent meals, you don't have to have like a large meal, but a snack every 3 to 4 hours, because you're giving your body energy to actually be able to like survive and function optimally. Okay, now of course we want to avoid sugar and processed foods. So a lot of people, and I say this, and you've obviously all seen this in my Instagram, but you know, sugar is one of the things we reach for when we feel tired. Of course, that 3:30-itis, because it actually gives us that instant buzz in energy. All right, but the problem with that is that we will get the crash after. You know, the sugar, yes, it spikes it, but then it significantly drops it after. And that drop is much worse than, and that drop in energy is much worse than it was when we, you know, initially reached from the sugar. All right, so definitely avoiding high sugar and processed foods. And when I say sugar, I'm talking about, you know, refined sugar. So things like fruit, that's not a problem because you're getting the fiber along with the, you know, the sugar or the glucose. Okay, adequate hydration is absolutely essential. This is probably one of the, the easiest things that we can do is making sure we get at least 2.5 litres of fluid every day of water. When our body gets dehydrated, it literally affects everything, and it actually can manifest as fatigue and low energy. So maybe we're just dehydrated and not actually tired. It actually declines our short-term memory, it affects our working motor skills, and definitely affects our mood and our energy. So I say to people, come up with a hydration plan. So whether that be, that you drink, a glass of water every hour, or maybe you before your lunch or your dinner, you have a couple of glasses, or I tell people drink 1 before 11, 2 before 2, and 3 before 3. Whatever it is that's going to be sustainable for you, but you definitely want to ensure that your body is having adequate hydration ongoing, because that will definitely affect your energy. And then, of course, we want to limit our caffeine consumption. So like I mentioned before, caffeine definitely gives us that initial buzz of energy. It's going to boost those cortisol levels and it's going to give us the adrenaline, but it's going to definitively affect us later. Quite often you'll find that that's why you need another coffee, because the other coffee is worn off already. There are beautiful things that you can swap coffee for. So I love green tea or matcha, because that still does contain the L-theanine amino acid, which is amazing, and that's going to give us like cognitive support, but without that sort of zap on the adrenal glands. All right, so what are specific foods for awesome energy? Well, I love the spices, turmeric, ginger, and cinnamon. They're very high in antioxidants and high sort of vibrational foods. Sorry, just bear with me. Okay, so that's fantastic. Bananas are nature's natural energy booster, full of potassium, full of your minerals and vitamins. So love the good bananas are awesome for that. Nuts and seeds, also fantastic to graze on throughout the day, stabilizing your energy. They've got the good fats, they've got protein in there. Green tea, like I mentioned before, it has that L-theanine in it, which is fantastic for the brain and fantastic for memory and cognition. So like I said, definitely try and have, a matcha or a green tea at some point in the day. Berries, the darker the berry, the better the antioxidant level. So again, they're going to be full of energy, amazing energy for your body. You think about whenever something's vibrant and naturally bright in the natural world, it's full of amazing antioxidants that are going to fuel our bodies. Of course, low GI or foods, so whole grains like oats and quinoa, avoiding your white and processed things, but your oats and quinoa are both beautiful things, low GI, to stabilize the blood sugar levels. Sprouts, I could probably do a whole masterclass on sprouts. They're so awesome for the body. So definitely you can either grow them yourself, or you can definitely source alfalfa and broccoli sprouts pretty easily. But otherwise do it yourself. It's also awesome, and you become like a farmer in your little house. So it's awesome. Spirulina, love it. It's an amazing superfood. It's probably my favorite superfood. It's full of all of the phytominerals, really good source of iron and B12, particularly for plant-based people. Legumes, another favorite of mine. Most of my clients, no doubt, are having to have more legumes in their diets, but it's such an amazing food. It's got, again, all of those proteins, helps build the amino acids, fantastic for the heart, everything, stabilizing our blood sugar. They're awesome. So definitely adding more legumes into the diet. Eggs, another fantastic food for energy, and apples. So they say that, an apple will give you the same energy that a coffee will, despite without the crash. So if you feel like you need another sort of quick energy boost, so chewing on an apple would probably be a good idea. Okay, so let's just talk about a couple of other factors that may be contributing to low energy, or to your low energy. Number one, most important thing to mention is inactivity. I spoke to my sister the other day and she told me or informed me that sitting is the new smoking. So I did some research and absolutely, it's terrible really. And of course, we're doing more sitting. Like I said, COVID, lockdown life, we all, I work from home. There's days I don't, even leave the house, and I check my watch and I haven't even done 1,000 steps. And unfortunately, not unfortunately, but us humans are designed for standing up. Our heart, cardiovascular system, digestive system all works more effectively when we're standing up, or when we're getting more motion into our bodies. Sitting for long periods of time weakens our legs and our butt muscles. So moving our muscles also has a direct impact on our digestion of fats and sugars. If we sit down for long periods of time, this causes the blood to pool in our legs, and this can lead to varicose veins or, vein issues as well, restless legs. Also, there's been a lot of studies, and one particular study has shown that even just 5 days of lying in bed can lead to insulin resistance. And your body, so that's actually quite, interesting or scary. And research actually suggests that people who spend more time sitting have over 100% higher risk of developing diabetes. So without a doubt, inactivity is going to be affecting our energy. All right, we were designed for movement. Our body's designed to move. So sitting down and being sort of stagnant is going to stagnate our energy as well. As I mentioned before, thyroid imbalances has a direct impact on energy, whether it be high or low functioning thyroid, either way. Diabetes, gut dysbiosis, whether we're actually absorbing the nutrients from food, parasite infections, systemic inflammation, mineral deficiencies, and prescription medication. All of these things could be contributing to low energy levels as well. All right, so we learned earlier what energy takers were. So what are energy givers? Rejuvenating and restful, blissful sleep, wholesome diet and adequate hydration, stress management and a positive mindset, focusing on gratitude and joy, time in nature, away from EMF exposure, without a doubt. This is why you probably see on my Instagram, I'm standing out in my garden barefoot after a long day, and that is to sort of ground, essentially, or earth. And what that does is that directly helps my body to uptake more negative ions from the earth and clear sort of the pent-up positive ions that sitting down and being exposed to EMFs have put on my body. So even if you spend 5 to 10 minutes with your feet on the ground, you're going to most definitely be, helping to clear a lot of the EMFs as well. Sunlight and fresh air, who would have thought? But they're massive energy givers as well, and movement and exercise. So I don't think any of that's too hard for anyone. Pretty sure we can definitely try and do all those things daily, ideally, to make us have better and epic energy. So we've come to the end now. I've spoken a lot, as you can probably, as you've no doubt heard me speak a lot. So I just want to jump into this one first. And then I'll come back to my special deal that I've got. But what I thought everyone could do is, if you want to take a photo of this or screenshot this, but do a little personal energy check-in. So over the next sort of few days, why don't you spend a little bit of time reflecting on these questions? See how your energy score is. So what time do you go to bed? How long does it take you to fall asleep? Do you wake up throughout the night? How many times? Do you wake up before the alarm? Do you feel refreshed on waking? What time do you have breakfast? Does it include a good protein and a good fat? And how many coffees do you have a day? How do you feel if you don't have a coffee that day? Do you reach for the sugar hit at 3:30 in the afternoon? How would you rate your stress levels out of 10? How do you feel when you get home from work? Are you relaxed or agitated? Are you an easily irritated, snappy person, or maybe highly emotional? How many hours have you spent behind a screen or, you know, on your electronic device, even at the end of the day? And did you get any time in nature that day? Did you get out in sunlight? You know, simple things that you could check on throughout the day to sort of see what your energy, epic energy score might come back with. So on that note, thanks for everyone who listened in. I hope it was interesting for you. But I have a special deal for you guys, anyone who joined in today. If you want a 30-minute energy intensive with me, where we go through all the things that could be contributing to your low energy levels, then this is a special deal for you. It's going to help us to identify, like I mentioned, your personal factors and influences and how I can help you address them and get you buzzing and having epic energy into 2022. So this offer will be only available for about 48 hours. So after I send the link, I'll send you an email as well with more information about how you can snap this special deal. And on that note, here are my informations. So here is the information. So you can email me, my website, and then my social media is Sarah Emily Herbalist. As probably most of you know, it's probably all following. Yes, but definitely, like I said, that's a special, I'll send you more information in the email to come with the link as well from today's class. So I hope everyone found it interesting. I'm just going to, yeah. Fantastic. All right, let me just check if there's any questions in the chat. Okay, no, good. All right, but yeah. Good. All right, well, thanks, everyone. Like I said, I hope you all found it interesting, and definitely feel free to contact me if you need some extra support for some energy, some epic energy. All right. Well, everyone have a lovely evening and enjoy some time away from your screens.
Thank you very much. That was awesome.
You're very welcome.
Thanks, Sarah. It was lovely.
Thank you, Sarah. That
Thank
was
you.
really good.
I know.